Okay, welcome back to another author interview at Crystal Lake. And today our guest is Theresa Derwin, and we're here to talk about her new book, God's Vengeance. Now I'm going to turn it over to her and let her introduce herself. So take it away.
Hiya, my name is Theresa Derwin, and I have been writing, since I was about 9 years old. I write horror, science fiction, fantasy, paranormal romance. I've recently gotten into, I suppose, forgive me, but the phrase would be monster shagging in England, which that kind of writing because it's fun. And when you read God's Vengeance, you will know why I've needed to switch lanes for a little bit. So, yeah, that's pretty much me, based in Birmingham, UK.
Okay, great. So give everybody an overview of the book, God's Vengeance.
Okay, so it starts in 2042, and we have another pandemic. This one becomes known as Blanchard syndrome, named after the doctor who discovers it. We find out early on that he's got some nefarious kind of purpose behind investigating this particular disease. Now, our heroine is Ella, and she's 16 years old, and it literally starts with her not expecting the world to end with her brother dying. You know, it's not a spoiler, that's there in the first paragraph pretty much. And then we see what happens. It's a dystopic SFYA novella, and it follows her path as she tries to get away from the government breeding program is the only phrase I can come up for. It's got Handmaid's Tale vibes, not as kind of intricate world building as the one you would find there. And she's on the run at first, but finds herself still imprisoned in one of these facilities. And there she meets a group of people who become firm friends, and it's the journey through all of the confusion, the abuse, and everything that happens there. And it's pretty much about not just a woman's right to choose, but everybody's right to choose what happens to their own body.
Okay, very topical these days, too. So,
Absolutely.
what were your inspirations for writing God's Vengeance?
Ironically, a certain Mr. T, who has an orange persuasion about him. I was in the UK, and I remember watching the elections, the first ones, and Dad's like, "Why are you crying when he won?" And I was like, "Because I can see the way the world is heading." There was a short story competition hosted by Joe not long after that particular time, and there wasn't a theme. He wanted dark stories. I came roughly fourth, and it was only the first three that got anywhere. But it was the first 5,000 words of what would become God's Vengeance, and it just ends with Ella discovering who is involved in a conspiracy theory and running. That's where it ends, and that's where the novella continues. And it's basically, I'd experienced a lot as a teenager and a young woman, and I'd also gone through some medical procedures to do with my endometriosis, and I'd had to fight hard against the male bureaucratic system. So that was a lot of the inspiration behind it.
Yeah, I can see that. I've heard some horror stories around endometriosis and similar things in the medical profession. Luckily, I've not had to deal with that, but yeah, I
Yeah.
sympathize definitely. So, tell us about the main character. What kind of emotional journey does she go through in the book?
Gosh, Ella, poor little Ella. I haven't gone for a chosen one heroine vibe, because what I've had to do, I've had to blunder through some of it really, because I wanted her to feel a little bit real, because she starts the book at 16 and it starts with her discovering her brother in a fever up in his bedroom, calling the UK paramedics, having him go to hospital. Then he dies. Then it's kind of months later, we know that she and her mum are suffering from depression. So there is a lot about mental health in there, especially a particular scene that comes up in the trigger warnings, which involves a young man in the middle of it. And she goes from this kind of on the run, trusting the people that she meets, and she's still quite trustworthy, even when she's in this institute, to being horrified by the things that she sees, then kind of discovering this group of friends who are the kind of glue that holds her together and holds each other together. She also discovers emotional, romantic feelings towards somebody in the book, and I won't discuss who it is. And then her rebellious streak comes out. She's not as brave as some of the other characters, and that was intentional, because it does annoy me. The 90s had very much, she's the one, she will kick ass, she will save the world. She's not that character. She's just a 16 to 17-year-old girl experiencing horror, and we see all through her eyes. I will tell you that the ending isn't horrific, but I can't say much more than that.
Well, it sounds like the readers have a interesting character to sympathize with, I think. So tell us a little bit about the antagonist. He's a doctor that crosses his ethical boundaries.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He
So
really does.
yeah. So what can readers expect in terms of complexity with that character?
Right. He's a manipulator. He's the perfect narcissist, based on people I've met in my real life and people that we have seen on TV. And he starts off as the sympathetic doctor. He's manipulating all of these young people, especially at the beginning, before we know too much about who he is, because he gets involved in the beginning where she goes to a safe haven, or what she thinks is a safe haven. Then when it comes into the actual novella and the context of the institute, we realise that he's actually a little bit more unhinged than we thought. And I've got to admit, I'm kind of inspired by the mad scientist trope a little bit. He's not there in his lab with the body on the slab, but his ethical boundaries, as you've mentioned, they do skew quite a bit. But ultimately, he sees himself as the hero because his motives are good. And again, I can't say too much without spoiling.
Yeah. The mad scientist trope is kind of fun to write. So yeah, I can see.
It really is.
Yeah. So the tone of the book is dystopian. So what sort of ideas and morality did you explore in the story where humanity is in crisis?
Gosh, we've seen it happen in the pandemic. Not everybody behaves in a good way. And also a lot of people become isolated and angry with each other and the world. We've also got the whole ethical question of, again, a girl or a boy's or a non-binary person's right to choose what happens to their own body. We've got, there's a lot of mental health issues that are looked at. We've obviously got the rights of trans people, and there is a trans secondary character that has quite an angle to play in this book and how they are treated. You basically got a bunch of horny, depressed, hormonal teenagers stuck in this institute together, and how you would imagine that would play out, apart from the fact they're told at first, no sex allowed. Then we discover something that means that intimacy happens. I'm trying to not go into the whole...
I think we can all imagine what happens when teenagers are stuck together in a small facility and told not
It's a
to have sex.
molten pot, yeah.
Yeah. I think that's pretty obvious that, yeah, you can tell teenagers not to have sex, but that ain't happening.
There's a lot of anger.
Yeah. So, what sort of research did you do for the book? Did you fall down any research rabbit holes?
Oh gosh, did I ever? Ironically, one of the first ones was calculating the population, because obviously I had to look, what's our current population? What would it be naturally if nothing untoward happened in 2042? Now, this took 10 years to write, and we had a pandemic in the middle. So that opened up a lot more. And also, I'm not a scientist. I've got a friend who's a microbiologist, and she helped me a great deal with the writing the actual sciencey bits. In fact, her and another biologist friend helped me edit my scientific articles. But the rabbit hole was kind of, it's a silly one, but I ended up falling down in mansions, because where our institute is set is in a repurposed Cotswoldian mansion. So I just fell down the whole Austin route, looking at all the pretty buildings. But yeah, and it just, the amount of research I had to do, from population to how diseases work to what would happen if you took away certain medications from people, because that was key, to see what happens when you take away their medications, from mental health, anxiety support, to actual hormones for a trans character. That took a lot of work. I mean, luckily, I think I've got 8 sensitivity readers in the end, going through it all, from a trans advocate who's an actual worker in the trans community and an advocate internationally, also a publisher and a writer. So she was incredibly useful. That Cheryl Morgan, she was invaluable research partner. Then, of course, because I've got South Asian characters, I live in Birmingham. We are a big multicultural city. Cotswold is just up the road in terms of American speak. So it's not far at all, about an hour and a half. So that in the institute, that would be one, it's implied, that would have localish kids. So I've got all sorts of cultures living together. So then I'm texting my South Asian friends, what does this dessert look and taste like? And what desserts would a South Asian kid miss? You know, things like that. And getting them to phrase sort of phrases that are used between 2 characters in an intimate setting. So
Yeah.
So much research. That's why it took 10 years. Plus my health, obviously. Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine. I've fallen down the mansion research rabbit hole myself.
Oh, it's terrible. You just look at all the pretty buildings. You want to go to them.
Yeah, I've had to do, like, interior blueprints for some of my stories, because I write a lot of historical stuff, so it's all set in, Victorian era Victorian era mansions, and you gotta know which room was the parlor and where was it sitting.
Yes, of course, yes.
Yeah, and the differences between a parlor and a sitting room, which...
Oh,
Yeah, there are differences apparently. So
Well, apparently, I mean, I knew some Brits about 10 years ago that still use sitting room and parlour
yeah,
in their language. So it's strange.
yeah. Okay, so what's your favorite scene in the book without spoilers?
Okay, without spoilers, it's actually based a little bit on my own personal experiences, and it's a medical, not procedure, not an operation or anything like that, but a medical exam that Ella has to go through. And the reason it's my favourite scene is she meets a character just before it and then after it, who is integral to the plot. And also because I got to let out some of that anguish that young me had gone through when you're ignored during such a procedure. And this isn't an operation, this is just the way girls were dealt with back in the day.
Mm,
So
yeah.
it's an emotional piece of writing.
Yeah, there's definitely some gaps in the medical system as far as
Oh God,
women are
yeah.
concerned.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, over here in Canada too, so
Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of bias for male doctors against women even today, which is kind of a
It's
shame.
ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah, so did you find anything challenging about writing the book? Obviously, the research was a little challenging. So
Well,
did a scene
yeah.
or a character give you any trouble?
Yes. There is a scene where we see a little bit of the impact of a young lad who has got mental health conditions. And I was like, do I go this far in what he screams and what he does and how he's dealt with? And I'm like, God, I really had an emotional, moral dilemma because I wanted to show that young lads often suffer from mental health and depression and they are not allowed to express themselves. And it was a horrible scene, don't get me wrong, horrible, horrible scene, but I felt that it needed to be in there. Also, from a practical point of view, the pandemic happened halfway through, and I was like, Joe, I can't kill the dirt. Joe was like, no, not anymore, not now. We're in the midst of COVID. I don't think you can.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I think the pandemic kind of screwed up a lot of books and inspired
Yeah.
a lot too, apparently. 'Cause,
Oh, God, yes. I retrofitted some of the pandemic in historical discussions, but so that was convenient.
hmm.
But yeah,
Yeah, yeah, because I mean, I suppose you could just sort of use it as a like a template for the
yeah.
for as well. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, is there a facet of writing fiction that's tricky for you in general?
Sorry, I didn't quite hear that.
Okay, is there a facet of writing fiction for you that's tricky in general?
Oh, keeping the plot together. I'm quite good at dialogue. When it comes to metaphors and similes and descriptions, I sometimes need to be railed back in a little bit, but it's actually not literally losing the plot because it's so easy to go off on all these tangents, and that's the kind of person I am. So it's trying to just hone it down and keep it on track.
Yeah, the plot details and those little subplots, yeah.
Yeah.
You gotta rein them in.
Oh, yeah. But to be honest, I discovered the beat sheet from Save the Cat part way through writing it, and then I went back and I beated it out, and that helped a great deal. Plus,
Yeah.
I had a friend called Michael. He was involved a lot in this. We actually role played in a pub a scene with the police person and my teenage character. And we literally stopped partway through. Right, let's write that bit down to try and get through some of the scenes where I was struggling with exactly how somebody would react.
Yeah, role-playing a scene can be very helpful. I've done that once or twice, mostly to block out the choreography, because if I'm doing like, I write a lot of fantasy, so I'm doing sword fights or
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
so blocking out the choreography can be helpful too, so yeah. So, what's the hardest challenge you've had to overcome in your writing life?
My disabilities. I am chronically ill. I have been for at least 15 years, although I was poorly before that and I was working. But this is why it took so long. At first, Joe was like, yeah, 6 months, no worries. And then at the end, he just said, when it's done, send it to me and we'll look at it. And often, if I got involved and did quite a few pages, that would knock me out. Also, equipment. I started writing on a laptop, but with my wrists and hands, that wasn't possible after so long through it. So I wrote most of this book on my phone. And I've got a thing here, let me show you, called a pillow pad, which is literally a mini desktop that's soft and squishy that you lie your phone on.
Mhm. Oh, yeah, well, you adapt to what you can do, and if it works, it works, so yeah.
Yeah.
So, what's your favorite aspect of being a writer?
Making shit up. Literally going wild. I mean, this one was very structured, it was emotional, and I've got so many ideas, and I love creating sort of new characters, new worlds, new creatures. I'm very much a creature feature child. And throwing in insane bits of humour. I just love to go wild.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a creature feature child myself, so yeah, I can
Yeah.
relate. So, who are some of your favorite authors? Is there anything special on your to-read list this year?
Well, interestingly, this month is Mermaid. So I'm doing quite a lot of mermaid fiction. However, what I am doing is adding sort of, by mermaid, I'm adding sea creatures, sirens, the octopus. I'm reading Remarkably Bright Creatures. And Marcellus the octopus is officially a mermaid. So I love reading fantasy, horror, science fiction. I picked this up recently, which I'm very excited about. And it's The Great Disillusionment of Nick and Jay by Ryan Douglas, of the Taking YA book of Taylor Livingston, I think it's called. And I read a lot of queer fiction because I'm bi, and reading that actually helped me discover a lot about myself. So I read all over the shop, to be honest. But at the minute on my TB read pile, there's Michael Laybon does the book bindery. He's got a new one, Devil in the Deep or Of the Deep, it's called, coming out from his publication. And it's a wild Haitian-inspired mermaid, pirates. It's got everything in it, which I'm looking forward to.
Yeah. Crystal Lake just released a Mer People book, The Fathoms
I am
Below.
reading it. Yes, it's great fun. Very
Yeah,
interesting underworld world that she's created. It's kind of like a bit of a juxtaposition in the way you've got people who have got waterproof devices and books and have to have jobs down in the sea. It's like, oh, So it's quite fun.
Yeah,
Enjoying
yeah.
that.
I interviewed her for the book launch. Yeah, it was sounds fascinating. So, tell us about some of the other things you've written or working on.
Well, here's one I prepared earlier. We talked about creature features. I don't know how much of this you can see.
Yeah.
This is the first ever collection, Monsters Anonymous, and it's basically a collection of a lot of my early reprints, plus some written for this edition stories by Anarchy Books. A lot of it now I look at and think, gosh, that's a bit amateur, but hey ho. And it's about a support group for creatures, mythical creatures, monsters, were creatures, vampires, old ones, mummies, all of it. And the concept is the wraparound is a story of their meeting. And in it, each story is the story of that creature and some of the experiences that I've had. So I love my monsters. I had a story come out in an anthology for R. Chetwin Hayes, and I wrote a kind of spin-off of Marvin, the vampire, from that. And again, Were Tales. Where I went with this, my story in this actually got longlisted by Ellen Datlow, and it's called Shift Left for Love. And it's actually about a dating agency for supernatural creatures, but a goth girl signs up thinking it's one for goths. And what happens to her when she meets the love of her life from when she was 5 years old, who is actually a shifter of some sort. And again, daughter of Sarpedon. I like to do a little bit cheesy, and my story with my Medusa creature in this, it starts in her heckling a watch of Clash of the Titans in the cinema. So I like to have a lot of fun and write a lot of creatures, which brings me to my next book, which provisionally titled Children of Bast, and it's about a woman who hits menopause and gets claws. The change turns her into a fluffy white cat. But her other shifter part is a Siberian tiger, and she's sent back to school to a shifter academy for cats hidden behind or under Excalibur Casino in Vegas. So I'm having a lot of fun with that one.
Yeah, that does sound like fun. Do you have any other projects coming up besides that one?
Honestly, it's all been about this book. I try to meet deadlines, but like Douglas Adams, they fly by me. They're kind of a non-existent thing when you battle disabilities and the PR and work I'm doing on this. So a lot of them, I'm writing a fun one where it was inspired by a subcaller I didn't quite make, but I like what I've done with the world. And it's a building based on the tarot cards. It's like a kind of mafio pseudo-magical organisation where each tarot is a class of society. And the higher goes up, the higher the suits of the tarot cards, except for some poor old guy based near the bottom on the 5th floor has to get involved in an investigation with one of the higher tarots about missing funds. So it's quite fun. That one, that's a short story. I'm going back to shorts for a while, and I'm also ironically working on a mermaid novella. All the mermaids are dying, a bit of climate change, and a mer woman who works as a microbiologist for a university near one of our own UK seasides, and also mermaids and sea creatures that are showing up dead with a poison in their system that shouldn't be there. So Murder mystery meets mermaid.
Oh, that sounds like fun. Okay, so I think we'll wrap the interview up here. It was a pleasure chatting with you.
And you, yes.
Your book sounds great. So God's Vengeance is available. So, and your upcoming stuff sounds great too. So it was a pleasure chatting with you.
And you, thank you for your time.
Yeah, and that's it for this episode. So bye for now, everybody.